everybody. I'm Partin, and today I'm going to be telling you all about one of the few remaining ancient cultures. Judaism emerged thousands of years ago, and because it's had so long to develop, the Jewish people have accumulated all these experiences and social customs that make it one of the most multifarious cultures around today. Judaism emerged thousands of years ago in ancient Mesopotamia. Here's a picture of ancient Jerusalem, which is the birthplace of Judaism. And over time, different empires started to take over. The ancient Egyptian people took over early on and ruled the Jewish people for hundreds of years, and eventually the Persians and Greeks also did this. While these three different nations allowed the Jewish people to keep their social customs and rituals, the later rulers, the Romans, did not. According to Thomas Hooker's article, Diaspora, what the Romans did was basically destroy everything Jewish that they could find. They destroyed the city of Jerusalem, and they annexed Judea and made it a province. Eventually, they just started removing Jewish people from Palestine altogether. This didn't really leave much room for the Jewish people to stay where they wanted to stay, and it made them disperse across the whole globe. And they ended up in places like Asia and Africa and Eastern Europe, and developed these subcultures that were really different from one another. So, later, whenever the people began to immigrate to America in the 20th century, it was kind of a culture shock. Because a new era of anti-Semitism was kind of dawning around the world during the early 20th century, Jewish people from all over the world wanted to move to America, where it was more of a blank slate and people weren't as bigoted. When this happened, people started having assimilationist attitudes and dropping their old last names and taking on anglicized versions and banding together as Americans rather than Jewish people because they were trying to escape the prejudices that they had seen in the past. According to Ted Tugin's article, Preservation Efforts, after the Holocaust happened, new groups started to emerge for preservation of Jewish culture and restoration of old relics and important documents and cultural articles. One example of this was whenever Steven Spielberg compiled over 50,000 interviews from Holocaust survivors, and he put them together in one documentary that was shown in museums and given to high school students to educate new generations on the past struggles of Jewish people. Because of this, the culture of Jewish people was strengthened and allowed to go on despite the loss that happened during the Holocaust. Because of this, a new vein of Judaism came up that was cultural rather than religious. Whenever people started to come to America, they wanted to take on American attitudes, and one very important American attitude is the ability to have individual choice rather than have your heritage define who you are. So, instead of bonding with each other because of their common God and common spiritual text, people started to build community centers and have service projects, and the way that Jewish culture emerged was through individual choice. And in David Elazar's article, Assimilation and Authenticity, he said that they were trying to go for an identity that was a reflection of social order based on chosen affiliation rather than heritage. Because of this, Jewish people began to have their own culture that was more focused on their activities. And here we have a picture of one of the oldest Jewish community centers in the United States, which is in Washington, D.C. So those are some examples of the way that Jewish people have, instead of staying in synagogues, they've gone out into the world and made a larger connection with Jewish people around them. So, as you can see, over the thousands of years that Jewish people have been around, they have made one of the most interesting and active cultures out there. Thank thank you all for listening.